There are moments in life when heaven seems silent. You pray, you fast, you cry out to God, yet nothing changes. The doors remain closed, the opportunities slip away, and your dreams feel like they are crumbling into dust. You wonder, has God forgotten me? Am I being punished? Will my promise ever come to pass? But what if I told you that the delays you are facing are not denials? What if I told you that behind the waiting there is a divine strategy unfolding? One that is far greater than anything you could imagine. Do not mistake silence for absence. Do not mistake waiting for rejection. What God is orchestrating in your life is beyond what you can see right now. Stay with me. This message is for you. When God allows a delay in your life, it is not because He has abandoned you. It is not because He has changed His mind about your destiny. The enemy wants you to believe that if something is taking longer than expected, it means God has rejected you. But that is a lie. The truth is that God's timing is perfect, and every delay is preparing you for something greater than you can comprehend. If God gave you everything you asked for immediately, you would not be able to handle it. There are blessings that require growth, character, and wisdom before they can be entrusted to you. A delay does not mean God has forgotten you. It means He is working on something you cannot yet see. Think about Joseph. He had a dream as a young man, a vision from God that he would be placed in a position of great authority. But instead of walking straight into his destiny, he was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Imagine how he must have felt during those years of suffering. It would have been easy for him to believe that God had abandoned him. Yet, in the midst of his suffering, God was working. What looked like a series of painful delays was actually a divine process of preparation. By the time Joseph was elevated to the highest position in Egypt, he was not only ready for the role, but he was also positioned in the perfect place to fulfill his destiny and save a nation. If God had taken him straight from the dream to the palace, he would not have had the wisdom, humility, or strength to handle it. Delays are not punishments. They are platforms for preparation. When God takes His time, it is because He is shaping something inside you that will sustain the blessing He is bringing your way. Many people abort their destiny because they cannot endure the waiting process. They rush ahead of God, trying to make things happen on their own, only to realize later that they were not ready. But those who trust in the Lord, those who wait upon Him, will always see His faithfulness manifest in ways they never expected. Abraham was given a promise, a word from God that he would become the father of many nations. Yet, year after year passed with no child in sight. He and Sarah grew older, and the natural possibility of having children faded. They could have given up. They could have declared that God had denied them. But God was not late. He was not absent. He was waiting for the perfect time to reveal His glory. And when Isaac was finally born, it was not through human ability, but by divine intervention. The delay was necessary to prove that the promise was not the work of man, but the fulfillment of God's perfect plan. If you are in a season of waiting, you must understand that your faith is being tested. The enemy wants you to lose hope. He wants you to walk away from God's promise. He wants you to believe that nothing will change and that you are wasting your time believing in something that will never happen. But God is watching your response. Will you trust Him even when you cannot see what He is doing? Will you keep believing even when the situation looks impossible? It is in the waiting that your faith is proven. It is in the waiting that your character is shaped. David was anointed king as a young man, but he did not take the throne immediately. Instead, he spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves and facing battles that tested his endurance. Why would God anoint him king, but then allow him to endure so much hardship before taking his rightful place? Because there was a process. David needed to be refined, to be trained, to be humbled before stepping into his destiny. If he had become king too soon, he would not have been the leader that God intended him to be. But when the time came, David was not only ready, he was unstoppable. When God allows a delay, it is because He is building something inside you. He is making you stronger, wiser, and more prepared than ever before. The enemy may try to convince you that you are stuck, that nothing is happening, but do not listen to the lies. Even when it feels like nothing is moving, God is at work behind the scenes. Just as a seed must remain underground before it breaks through the soil, your breakthrough is being developed in the unseen realm. You may not see it yet, but when the time is right, it will manifest. Some of you have been praying for a breakthrough in your finances, but nothing has changed. You have been asking God to open doors, but every door remains shut. You have been believing for healing, but the sickness is still there. Do not mistake the delay for denial. God is setting things in motion that you cannot yet perceive. He is aligning people, circumstances, and divine appointments that will come together at the exact moment you need them. If He answered too soon, you would not be positioned for the fullness of the blessing. There is a reason why Scripture tells us to be still and know that He is God. The greatest battles are often won in the silence, in the seasons of waiting, in the moments where nothing seems to be happening. That is when faith is activated. That is when trust is tested. If you only believe when you can see, then your faith is weak. But if you can hold on, even when everything looks the opposite of what God promised, then you are walking in the faith that moves mountains. Jesus Himself experienced divine timing. When He was on earth, there were moments when people wanted Him to act immediately, but He would say, "My time has not yet come." There was a divine schedule, a perfect plan unfolding, and when the time finally came for Him to be glorified, everything aligned perfectly. If Jesus, the Son of God, had to submit to divine timing, how much more should we? You may be wondering why things have not happened yet. You may be questioning why God has not answered your prayers the way you expected. But I am here to tell you that your story is not over. Your season of waiting is not wasted time. Every tear you have cried, every prayer you have whispered, every moment of endurance is leading to something greater than you can imagine. God is not just answering your prayers, He is exceeding them. He is preparing a testimony that will leave people in awe. When you look back on this season, you will realize that the delay was necessary. You will understand that had God moved sooner, you would not have been ready. You will see that what you thought was a setback was actually a setup. God does not waste time. He does not forget His children. He does not abandon His promises. What He has spoken over your life will come to pass in the perfect time. You must hold on. You must keep believing. You must refuse to give up. The enemy would love nothing more than for you to quit before your breakthrough arrives. He wants you to grow weary and walk away from your faith. But if you stand firm, if you refuse to be shaken, you will see the faithfulness of God in ways you never imagined. Delay is not denial. It is divine preparation. It is God's way of making sure that when you step into your blessing, you are fully ready to handle it. Every struggle, every moment of waiting, every unanswered prayer is working together to create a testimony that will glorify God. Do not give up now. You are closer than you think. There is a reason why the waiting season feels so long. It is because God is not just working on your situation, He is working on you. He is refining you, stretching your faith, molding your character, and strengthening your spirit so that when the appointed time comes, you will be able to handle the weight of His blessing. Many people desire promotion, but they do not want the preparation that comes with it. They want the crown, but not the cross. They want the reward, but not the process. But God does not operate that way. He will never elevate you beyond your ability to sustain the blessing. His love for you is too great to allow you to receive something prematurely. Moses was called to lead Israel out of Egypt, but he did not step into his purpose immediately. He spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep before God called him at the burning bush. Why? Because he needed to be broken, humbled, and trained before he could lead an entire nation. Had Moses gone too soon, he would have relied on his own strength, his own wisdom, and his own abilities, rather than depending on the power of God. When God finally called him, Moses had reached a place where he no longer trusted in himself, but in the one who sent him. And that is what made him a great leader. The longer the wait, the greater the purpose. The longer the preparation, the greater the calling. If God is taking His time, it means He is preparing something bigger than you expected. Do not be discouraged by the delay. What He is working on is worth the wait. Every moment of frustration, every closed door, every painful lesson is leading you closer to the fulfillment of His promise. You are not being denied, you are being developed. Some of you have been waiting for a breakthrough in your ministry. You have received prophetic words, you have seen visions, you have felt the call of God so strongly in your life, yet nothing has manifested. You see others advancing while you remain in the same place. You have prayed, fasted, and remained faithful, but the doors have not opened. Do not grow weary. What God has spoken over your life will not return void. If the doors have not opened yet, it is because God is still shaping you for what is to come. He is teaching you endurance, patience, and unwavering trust. The worst thing you could do is give up before your appointed time. Jesus waited 30 years before beginning His ministry. 30 years of preparation for 3.5 years of impact. Imagine that. Imagine knowing that you are the Son of God, that you carry the power of heaven inside of you, that you are called to change the world, yet you must wait. Jesus, though fully divine, submitted to divine timing. He did not rush ahead of God's plan, even when others did not understand. He moved when the Father said move. He waited until the perfect moment, and because He waited, His ministry shook the world. If the Son of God had to wait, why do we think we should be exempt? Why do we believe that everything must happen immediately? Why do we grow discouraged when God asks us to be still? The enemy wants you to become impatient. He wants you to doubt God's timing and take matters into your own hands. He wants you to step ahead of the process so that when the blessing comes, you are not prepared to handle it. But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. God's delays are not empty. They are filled with purpose. They are strategic. Every moment of waiting is filled with divine intention. There is something God is doing in your life right now that you cannot see. There is something He is aligning, orchestrating, and establishing that will make sense in the future. You may not understand it today, but when you look back, you will see that every delay was necessary. Every not yet was a part of the process. Every closed door was protection. Every unanswered prayer was God setting you up for something greater. There are many people who have missed their destiny because they could not endure the waiting season. They grew impatient. They allowed frustration to dictate their decisions. They tried to force doors open instead of waiting for God to open them. And because they moved ahead of God, they entered seasons they were not ready for. You do not want to be in a place that God has not called you to. You do not want to step into something prematurely. It is better to wait for the right time than to force the wrong one. Think about Sarah and Abraham. They received a promise from God, but when the delay seemed too long, they took matters into their own hands. Instead of waiting for God to fulfill His word, Sarah gave Hagar to Abraham, thinking she could produce the promise in her own strength. But what they birthed was not the promise, it was a complication. Ishmael was not the child of the covenant. He was the result of human impatience. And because they rushed ahead of God, they introduced unnecessary hardship into their lives. If they had only waited, they would have seen that God was faithful to His word. And when Isaac finally came, it was not by human effort, but by the power of God. Do not create Ishmaels in your life because you are too impatient to wait for Isaac. Do not settle for something lesser because you are tired of waiting for God's best. His timing is perfect. His plan is flawless. What He has spoken will come to pass, but you must trust Him. You must remain faithful in the waiting. You must believe that even when nothing seems to be happening, everything is happening in the spiritual realm. The enemy will try to discourage you. He will whisper lies into your mind, telling you that God has forgotten you. He will try to make you believe that your waiting is in vain, but the devil is a liar. If God said it, He will do it. If He spoke it, He will bring it to pass. The only thing that can stop you from receiving what God has for you is your own impatience. Stay the course. Keep believing. Keep trusting. Keep waiting. Every great man and woman of God went through a season of waiting. Every promise came after a process. Every anointing was preceded by testing. There is no shortcut to destiny. There is no bypassing the preparation. If you want to walk in the fullness of what God has for you, you must be willing to endure the waiting. You must be willing to trust when nothing makes sense. You must be willing to praise God even when the breakthrough has not yet come. One day the door will open. One day the promise will be fulfilled. One day everything will make sense. And when that day comes, you will look back and realize that God was never late. He was never absent. He was always working, always moving, always preparing. And you will thank Him for every delay. You will thank Him for every moment He made you wait. Because you will see that what He had in store for you was worth it. There are times when the waiting season feels unbearable. The silence of God can seem deafening, and the temptation to give up can grow stronger with each passing day. But that is when faith is truly tested. Faith is not just believing when things are going well. It is believing when everything looks opposite to what God promised. It is standing firm when nothing in your life reflects the vision that God placed in your heart. It is trusting when your emotions tell you to quit. That is the kind of faith that pleases God. That is the kind of faith that produces miracles. The enemy wants you to believe that waiting is wasted time, but that is a lie. Waiting is not wasted when it is spent in the presence of God. The waiting season is where roots grow deep, where spiritual muscles are strengthened, where trust is built. The waiting season is where God prepares you for what is coming. It is where He develops the wisdom, the endurance, and the spiritual capacity to sustain the blessing He is about to release. If God gave you the promise too soon, it would crush you instead of bless you. But in the waiting, He builds you. He increases your faith. He teaches you how to walk by the Spirit instead of the flesh. Some of you have been believing for healing, but the sickness still remains. Some of you have been praying for restoration in your family, but the situation has not changed. Some of you have been seeking clarity about your purpose, but the answers have not come. Do not let the delay convince you that God is absent. He is in the waiting. He is in the silence. He is in the moments when you feel forgotten. He has not abandoned you. He has not overlooked you. Every prayer has been heard. Every tear has been collected. Every cry has been seen by heaven. He is moving even when you cannot see it. God has a history of showing up at the last moment. When Israel was trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army, it looked like there was no way out. The enemy was closing in. The people were terrified. But at the last moment, God parted the sea. He made a way where there was no way. What seemed like a delay was actually God setting the stage for a miracle. Had He delivered them earlier, they would not have seen His power displayed in such a mighty way. The delay was divine. It was intentional. It was for His glory. Think about Joseph. He received a vision from God as a young man, a vision that one day he would rule. But instead of stepping into leadership immediately, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. It seemed like everything in his life was moving in the opposite direction of the promise. But what looked like a detour was actually God's divine path. Every trial, every setback, every betrayal was positioning him for his destiny. Had Joseph not been sold into slavery, he would not have ended up in Potiphar's house. Had he not been falsely accused, he would not have been in prison. Had he not been in prison, he would not have met Pharaoh's cupbearer. And had he not met the cupbearer, he would not have been brought before Pharaoh to interpret his dream. Every step, no matter how painful, was necessary. When the time was right, in a single moment, Joseph was promoted from the prison to the palace. The years of waiting made sense. The delays had a purpose. What the enemy meant for evil, God turned for good. Your story is no different. What you see as setbacks are really setups. What you see as delays are really divine appointments. The pain you have endured is not for nothing. The suffering you have walked through is not meaningless. God is using every piece of your journey to prepare you for what He has spoken. If He allowed you to go through it, it is because He has a purpose for it. Nothing is wasted in the hands of God. Sometimes the waiting season is about proving to God that you are ready. Many people want the blessing, but they do not want the discipline that comes with it. They want the breakthrough, but they do not want to endure the process. But God does not just give things to people who ask. He gives things to those who are ready. He looks at how you handle the small things before He releases the big things. If you are faithful in the little, He will entrust you with more. If you are obedient in the quiet place, He will promote you in the public place. David was anointed as king while he was still a shepherd, but he did not sit on the throne immediately. He went back to the fields. He went back to the place of preparation. Even after he defeated Goliath, he still had to wait. He still had to run from Saul. He still had to endure battles and trials before stepping into the fullness of his calling. But God was shaping him. He was refining him. And when the time came, David was not just a king by title. He was a king. He had been forged in the fire of waiting. The question is, what will you do while you wait? Will you complain or will you worship? Will you grow bitter or will you grow in faith? Will you allow the waiting season to make you stronger or will you let it break you? The waiting season is not a punishment, it is preparation. How you handle it determines what comes next. When Elijah prayed for rain after 3 years of drought, he did not see results immediately. He sent his servant to check the sky 6 times, and each time there was nothing. But on the 7th time, the servant saw a small cloud rising. It was not a storm, it was not thunder, it was just a small cloud. But that small sign was enough for Elijah to know that God was moving, and within moments, the heavens opened and rain poured down. Do not despise small signs. Sometimes, before the breakthrough comes, God gives you a glimpse, a small shift, a little encouragement, a whisper of hope. Pay attention to those moments. They are God's way of showing you that your waiting is not in vain. There are people who will look at you and not understand why you are still holding on. They will tell you to give up. They will tell you to move on. They will say that if God was really going to do it, He would have done it by now. But do not let the opinions of people shake your faith. They do not know what God spoke to you. They do not see what He is doing behind the scenes. They do not understand the magnitude of what He is preparing. Stay firm, stay faithful, stay in position. You are closer than you think. The breakthrough is nearer than it appears. Just when you think you cannot hold on any longer, that is usually when the promise is about to manifest. The darkest hour is just before the dawn. The enemy fights the hardest when he knows the miracle is near. That is why you must not quit. That is why you must keep standing, keep believing, keep praising. One day you will look back and realize that the waiting was worth it, that every delay was divine, that every closed door was a blessing, that every unanswered prayer was really God's protection, and you will see that He was faithful all along. Let me know when you want me to continue further. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when we must choose, will we trust God's timing or will we let doubt consume us? Will we believe that the delays were divine or will we allow frustration to lead us astray? The truth is, God's ways are higher than ours. His thoughts are beyond our understanding. What looks like a delay to us is often divine preparation. What feels like a setback is really a setup for something greater. If Joseph had given up in the prison, he would have never made it to the palace. If David had walked away in the wilderness, he would have never sat on the throne. If Elijah had stopped praying on the 6th time, he would have never seen the rain. If the Israelites had surrendered at the Red Sea, they would have never crossed over to freedom. In every story of faith, the ones who received the promise were those who did not quit. They endured the waiting, they persevered through the trials, and they held on to their faith when nothing made sense. You are no different. The same God who fulfilled His promises to them is the same God working in your life right now. He has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. Every tear you have cried, He has seen. Every prayer you have prayed, He has heard. Every moment of suffering He has counted, and He is working all things together for your good. The enemy wants you to believe that waiting is wasted time, but it is not. Waiting is where faith is built. Waiting is where character is forged. Waiting is where God prepares you for the very thing you have been praying for. Do not despise the process. Do not rush what God is doing. He is making sure that when the blessing comes, you will be ready to handle it. So keep believing, keep standing, keep trusting, even when it looks impossible, even when it feels like nothing is changing, even when doubt tries to creep in. Hold on to God's promise, because when the time is right, He will move suddenly. The doors that were closed will swing open. The prayers that seemed unanswered will be fulfilled. The vision that looked delayed will come to pass. And you will see that every step, every tear, every moment of waiting was worth it, because God's plan was always unfolding and His timing was always perfect.